Hey there folks, this is GreenXI welcoming you right back to Let's Play Umineko. This is episode 95. In last episode, Maria and Erica had a little barmy. Maria was, the 12-year-old girl. 12? Yeah, the 12-year-old girl who, still believes in magic and stuff, as kids would, I guess. And Erica just wouldn't let her have her innocent ways with what she's a fan of. So Erica tried to prove her wrong, which was a weird one. But I love the whole clash of it. I love that Erica is such a evil bitch that she would bully this little girl so much. But Maria sort of stood up for herself and brought in her second personality as an evil witch, and that all happened with the candy cup sort of situation. So, anyways, everyone went to bed. Erica and Kumasawa was shown together downstairs in the guest house. Somehow George is outside though. Let's have a look. Erica-chan, huh? She's an odd kid. A little bit. Somehow, I just can't seem to get along well with the young kids these days. Well, to be fair, if you've gone well with her, I'd be worried. You're still pretty young yourself, George-san. I guess it's because I've always been the oldest of the cousins. It's always made me feel like not one of the young ones anymore. That's fair. George and Shannon could be seen standing in the rainy rose garden. Though the rain was still pouring down, there was hardly any wind at all. The scant protection provided by the arbour was more than enough to house the secret meeting between lovers. Following that fight with Erica, they decided to play some cards for a change of pace. When that was over, Shannon had returned to the servant room, and shortly after that, George had left his room to meet with Shannon at the time they had arranged. Is it going to be the engagement? I think kids around Erica-san's age have a hard time getting along with themselves, more so than any other age. That's true. Around that age, most kids are so determined to free themselves from the shell of childhood that they lash out in all directions with their beaks. Beaks? When they do break... like getting out of a shell, I get you. Yeah. When they do break out, they'll finally be free to stretch their wings and fly high. I was like that too. My old self, still trapped inside that shell, was a weak, deplorable person who I couldn't really respect. That's not true. No, it's okay. I realised it myself. Back then, I might have been the oldest of the cousins, but I was still a lazy, hopeless person. And it wasn't just with the cousins. At home, at school, I was like that everywhere. I hated being like that. I wanted to break that shell and become a splendid adult like mother and father. So that's how we grew up more, yeah? But in the end, you did break out of that shell, George Sama. Every time I've met you these past few years, you've grown beyond recognition. Thank you. Did something cause you to make up your mind? To break out of my shell? Yeah. I can't imagine that you grew so rapidly, like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon, by just wandering around aimlessly. I thought there must have been some turning point that made you become so determined. I fell in love with you, and grew thanks to the power of love, is what I've told you so far. But the truth is, the turning point was a much more negative emotion. No way. It's hard to believe that someone who's always as bright and cheerful as you could have negative emotions. Everyone does. Well, my parents brought me up to treat women with care, and I thought that I'd managed to live my life that way. Yeah. I think you're wonderful, real gentleman. But I'm not, actually. I didn't know how to interact with the opposite sex. I deified them excessively, and though I always behaved in gentlemanly, ladies first kind of way, I was probably outright afraid of interacting with girls. Of course, George had wanted to be around girls as much as any healthy boy might. However, he didn't know how to interact with them. He wanted to act like a gentleman, to avoid being disliked by them, treating them with care. Of those feelings, only the words, treat women with care, took precedence, blossoming into a subconscious fear of women. You might call a man like that gentlemanly, or a late bloomer. Ridiculous. I was just a coward. Because of that, I started to wonder why I couldn't get a girlfriend if I was so gentlemanly. and he eventually came to the conclusion that all the women in the world had no taste, and started to hate all of them, selfishly. That's what a truly pathetic man looks like. How many years ago was it when I noticed? Probably when I was in middle school. At the time, I assumed that I was obviously the most gentlemanly of the cousins, so I would obviously be popular with women. However, reality was very different. At school, I was pretty much completely hopeless. Far from being a leader, I was a typical bullied kid who got pushed around by everyone. At the time, I figured I was just a capable and adaptable man who could keep in perfect tune with his surroundings. How stupid. Sure, I might have gained some measure of trust from girls. However, not only was there no one who would become my girlfriend, there weren't even any girls I could call friends. Of course, I was a man who always stepped back for the sake of ladies first. Who would ever want to follow behind such a negative, unmotivated man? It's funny. I didn't even realise this. I was convinced that I was an attractive guy. I can sort of understand how you felt. Just because someone puts in a lot of hard work to look attractive to the opposite sex, it doesn't necessarily work out as they plan. Oh? Has that happened to you too, Shannon? Of course. One time, I wanted to catch a boy's eye so much, I tried to put on makeup, even though I didn't know how, and embarrassed myself. I remember a lot of embarrassing failures. The person that made me finally get over my conceit and open my eyes was you, Shannon. No, it was both of you. Both of you, Shannon. Oh god. What was the turning point for you, George San? What do you mean by both of you? Envy, probably. That's unexpected. But envy over what? I saw you and Battler-kun having a really good time talking. That made me envious. Me and Battler-sama? Shannon raced through her memories, trying to find a conversation that might have made George envious. It probably seemed trivial to you two. However, it still made me envious. I don't want Battler to hear what I say next, no matter what. Can you promise me? Of course. It's going to be a shameful confession. Still, I want you to hear it. I want to hear your answer tonight, only after I've told you about my bad sides as well. Okay, let me hear it. With a smile, but a serious look in her eyes, Shannon nodded. Tonight? She knew what he was going to ask her tonight. George had the right to confess before asking that sacred question, and Shannon had the obligation to listen. Shannon understood this, so she listened quietly. So this is what a witch of theatre going peeps in on during her spare time. Stories of love are precious in any age. I never tire of them. However, I do find that expression of virgin disgust on your face even more amusing. Featherin laughed quietly. Angie huffed and looked away, but she quickly realised that this would only entertain Featherin even more, so she tried to act unconcerned. Both Battler-kun and Jessica-chan have always been spirited. No, phrasing it that way is just dodging the issue. Let me be frank. George looked up at where the moon should be, high above the rain clouds, and spoke. They were honest words, spoken simply from George's heart. For a long time back then, I thought of Battler-kun and Jessica-chan as bad-mannered kids. No, let me be even more blunt. I thought that even the way they talked was vulgar. It's true. I don't mind if you hold me in contempt for that. I don't. People are allowed to think anything they want inside their hearts. In fact, I think you were all the more commendable for not letting it show on the outside. Thanks. I secretly looked down on those two. I was so conceited that I truly thought I was just overflowing with gentlemanly charm compared to them. I was at that age where having a girlfriend felt like a necessary condition for becoming a real man. I truly believed that no girl could fail to admire a gentleman who treated girls as well as I did. So I really did assume that the girls I knew were attracted to me. I thought that Battler-kun and Jessica-chan, who always joked around and spoke in a rude, vulgar fashion, would never be able to get a boyfriend or girlfriend. I might have used that argument to distract myself when I still couldn't get one myself. I was a fool. They weren't inferior to me at all. I was the inferior one, with my deification of the opposite sex are my fear, which I hid under the guise of ladies first. That's been Battler's and Jessica's personality from the beginning. True, they were rude, and one couldn't have called them gentlemanly or ladylike. No, you can't. However, they did have the power to interact without worrying about gender. In fact, you might even call that their charm. I sort of understand. People like Oni-chan and Jessica Oni-chan can get along with anyone, whether that person's a boy or a girl. I hate to bring it up because of George Oni-chan, but I find people who act too overtly like a gentleman a bit creepy. It's like they're virgins trying too hard, or whatever. When dealing with strangers, people prefer for them to be harmless and boring. However, they only appreciate these qualities because such a person doesn't get in their way. No human would want to hang around with a boring person all the time. Of course, no idiot would want to be friends with an unmoving, unspeaking telephone pole. What? That's a weird way of putting it. However, unmoving and unspeaking is exactly what you want from a telephone pole. That's it. It seems as though George finally discovered that he wouldn't be viewed as an attractive man, no matter how superior he was, and that he had been treated like a telephone pole the whole time. Back then, my conceit was at its peak. So when everyone gathered at the family conference, I believed that I was the most attractive and that all the servant girls who played with us loved having me there. On that day, I finally realised how pathetic I was. Did I say something inconsiderate then? No, it's the opposite. You didn't say anything at all. My conceited delusion that I was the only one ever reflected in your eyes was crushed. Just when did it start? Must have started long before then. I only failed to notice because my eyes were clouded with conceit. One day, I suddenly realised it. All of you were getting along with Battler-kun and Jessica-chan far better than with me. Playing around and having a good time. Yes, those two, whom I had looked down upon so much, were radiating far more charm than I was. You really looked like you were enjoying yourself that day. The look on your face was far brighter than any you ever showed me. Sickening, isn't it? I just assumed that you liked me, and even had some childish fantasy that we might end up dating. I one-sidedly felt as though my girlfriend had been stolen from me, and let myself feel hurt. I was such a pathetic man. That's when I finally realised how foolish I'd been. George-sama. After that, stuff happened, and Battler-kun stopped coming to the family conferences, but I heard about him from time to time from Uncle Rudolph. He's a pretty funny guy. Even though he got in fights with Battler-kun all the time, he always paid close attention to what his son was up to. That's true. He spoke to me about it as well. I think even Asumu-sama was exasperated by it. She thought all his popularity with the girls at school and the unceasing trouble this caused must have been because of Rudolph-sama's blood. And Jessica-chan too. I hear she built up a huge number of friends, both boys and girls, and that she was always right in the middle of things. When I talked with her myself, I could see that this was no exaggeration. This proved that the two I'd looked down upon were much more attractive human beings than I was. At first I tried to imitate those two. It was pretty ridiculous. I thought that by joking around and speaking rudely, I could get that same charm they had. You did that? It's a bit hard to picture. It was miserable. I wish I could forget that time for the rest of my life. In any event, I quickly realised that I could never become truly attractive by imitating them like that. The reason I had no charm was because of my cowardice. Under the pretense of respecting people and acting to fit in with the general atmosphere, I was always running away. I resolved myself to overcome that flaw and be reborn. I finally understood the shell I was in, and I swore to break out of it. Every time my determination began to waver, I'd remember that day. That day I saw you two forget about me entirely and play around happily. And the fact that those eyes of yours, which I always assumed were attracted to me, never noticed me at all. I made an oath. This time, I wanted to be the one who caught your attention for real, the one reflected in your eyes. That's actually the first thing I felt when I fell in love with you. Sounds like it was pretty complicated for you. On that day, my desire for revenge against the two of you, who had ignored me and played together, no, against you alone, suddenly transformed into true love. However, I swear this to God, even though that was the reason I first started to take you seriously, there are no lies in the way I feel about you now. I swear to love you for all my life. I'll not lie about that for anyone or anything, and I am prepared to take you as my wife, even if it means having the entire world as my enemy. George San. That's the confession I wanted to make to you beforehand. Before now, I've called you my first love, love at first sight. That was a lie. It was only my selfish, twisted... That doesn't matter. Shannon smiled, but she spoke forcefully enough to cut through George's words. Like the red truth. Is there some rule saying that people can't get together just because they weren't each other's first love? Is it betrayal to forget the first person you fell in love with? Love isn't that simple. It might be simple. After all, love is easy. At all times, whatever you feel now, only the honest feelings you feel now can tell you the right answer. So things of the past, or how our relationship started, aren't important at all. Then, confessing to all that was wrong of me? No. I'm a bit glad to learn that even George San, who's always perfect at everything, has a human side to him. And I'm kinda glad that I'm the only person you've told this to. Thank you. I was only able to become who I am because of you. Me too. I am as I am because of you, George San. So please, tell me without holding back. What kind of husband and wife will we be? And what kind of future will we build together? When I have you as my wife, I will become an even more accomplished businessman than my father. And after several challenges and adventures, I hope to find the limits of my potential. I want to reach that peak together with you. The view from there will be something no one can show you but me. It sounds fun. I'll be with you wherever you go. Of course, it won't only be an adventure as a businessman. I'd like to create many things that only a couple can make. And what could that be? Let's have some kids. Yes, my husband. I'd like 3 of them at least. At least 1 boy, 1 girl. And what if all 3 are boys? Then the next one might be a girl. We can have a 4th one. It doesn't matter how many. Let's enjoy the adventure of bringing them up together. And when those children eventually leave their nest, they'll make us some grandchildren. Before we know it, we'll reach a boisterous old age, surrounded by a whole crowd of kids and grandchildren. Sounds like fun. I wonder what kind of a grandpa you'll be. And I wonder what kind of a grandma you'll be. However, I will always keep loving you. And when we eventually pass away, surrounded by our vast family, our lives will stretch behind us, unmatched by anyone else's. George didn't just talk about his love of the present. He swore to love her soul until the final moment when the lid of their coffins would be shut. Then George took a small box out of his pocket. Even without opening it, she knew what was inside. He took it out with a motion that was even more natural than the one he'd practiced in the airport bathroom, and it was overflowing with masculine charm. Sayo? Yes. Let's get married. Yes. Please take this ring and put it on your finger. Yes, George-san. That ring, which glistened divinely even in the dim light of the arbour, passed from George's hand to Shannon's finger. Of course, Shannon had already decided which finger to put it on. Well, there's only one in. I swear to resolutely stand against any fate that may attempt to stand in the way of the future. George proclaimed that he would reveal their engagement to the entire family on the next day. My parents might criticise this marriage. However, I'll not let them stop us. I'm going to inform them of our engagement, not ask for their permission. If Mother says that she won't allow our marriage, I plan to have myself disinherited, and we'll leave this family together. I have been prepared for that since long ago. I swear once again to resolutely stand against all fates that get in the way of our future. George had said it aloud. So Shannon said the same thing. Me too. I swear to stand against all fates that get in the way of our future, George-san. I'm sure this night will go fantastically. Yeah, you're the crack then. Battler-san, when will the crime start? It's not midnight yet. I've just about had it with this love show. Be quiet and watch. Sure, fine. I'd hate to yawn and let some spectacular bit of foreshadowing slip by. Do you have no love? Are there any mystery novels that accept love as proof? No, there aren't. Erica laughed coldly and stared down at the two on the game board. Battler watched her quietly. Erica thought she felt a touch of pity in his gaze, and she averted her eyes uncomfortably. I do understand, more or less. Love can at least become a motive for murder. I can interpret this scene beneath the arbour to represent a possible motive for the crime if their engagement is somehow impeded. Then again, no matter how much people talk of love with words that aren't read, it's all just an illusion. That's sad. So you can never love a human without proof given to you by a witch. Please put an end to this frivolous love talk. I'm your enemy, not a friend to whom you can talk about love just for the hell of it. I can't understand you at all right now. What on earth did you figure out? Weren't you and Peter always insulting and trying to kill each other? What kind of truth could you have reached to make you change your emotions regarding her? Please don't tell me that feelings of true love have sprouted from your murderous rivalry or anything like that, okay? Lady Erica, let's have him continue the game's progression. Boring love scenes such as this are best finished quickly. You got a point there. Sorry for butting in. Come on, let's move on. It's Shannon. I've come back. Indeed. The log for today has not yet been filled out. Yes, I'll do that right away. Cannon-kun, thanks for keeping an eye out while I was gone. That was a pretty long break. Cannon had already noticed. There was a silvery glint coming from the ring finger on Shannon's left hand. Then I will retire. Please do not hesitate to wake me if anything occurs. Good night, Genji-sama. Genji disappeared off to the waiting room. After that, only Shannon and Cannon remained. Thanks for giving me some time. I'll stay here for the rest, so you can go to sleep now. So, it's my turn next. Yeah. Sorry, but we aren't going to lose. And I won't lose either. Even though you've always been a coward and let Milady take the lead until now. Wasn't it you who taught me, Nissan? What did I teach you? The past is immaterial when it comes to love. The present is all that matters. If that's true, then I think my present is in no way inferior to yours, Nissan. Shannon and Cannon glared at each other with serious eyes. That period of tension vanished when Shannon chuckled. Yeah, that's good. You and Milady have to give it your all. If you do end up together, make sure you build up a relationship wonderful enough that the rest of us can cheer you on with all our hearts. You do have a huge lead on me. There's no help in that. That's what you get for your cowardice before now. I know. That's my sin. Shannon and Cannon fished around in their pockets and drew out two small things that glittered gold. They looked like the left and right wings of a gold butterfly. We are furniture. In order to become human and receive the miracle that allows us to love, we must rely on a miracle of magic once again. To think that her brooch would actually prove useful. It's the only magic within our reach. It was the golden butterfly brooch, which Beatrice had once given to Shannon in the hopes of creating love between her and George. Shannon then gave it to Cannon, but he let his emotions get a hold of him and crushed it into pieces. So, when the two wings they held were brought together, it would regain the form of a beautiful butterfly. Then I'll be back soon. After all, they've asked me to play cards with them. Yeah, good luck. I'm sure Milady will be happy. It's a bit embarrassing. Enjoy that feeling. Cannon left the servant room. He went to go see Jessica and tell her what he had determined to do. Shannon quietly watched him go. The fragment of the brooch and the engagement ring let off a gold and silver glint. That takes me back. That's something I gave Shannon, if I recall. I always wondered if they lost it after Cannon stepped on it, but it seems they still had it the whole time. That's the golden butterfly brooch, isn't it? I read about the magical brooch that can save a love relationship in Feather and Sand's book. That had been the first time that Beatrice, Witch of the Forest, had interacted with a human and given them her power. Bit by bit, she had transformed from a mere ghost to the ruler of the mansion at night. And by making the servants believe in her, she had wiped away the anti-magic power. And then, it eventually became possible for her to appear openly in front of Shannon, whose magic resistance had grown particularly low and who had begun to believe in the existence of Beatrice. To Beto, who had been unable to interact with anyone for many years, this conversation with Shannon must have been especially fun. That's why I generously gave her the butterfly brooch. Cackle cackle. I was in quite a good mood. It's no common thing for a heartless witch such as myself to be so gracious. But it's wonderful. You brought a pair of future lovers together. Of course, I did not do it to pamper them. It was in exchange for smashing that hateful spirit mirror that had repressed my magical powers. Thanks to that, I was able to regain much of my power all in one go. But then, one night, purple lightning smashed the shrine. Those of the surrounding islands called it an evil omen. Oh, now that I think of it, that must have been a prelude to Beatrice Sama's resurrection. Kumasawa had the rest of the night off, so she had let Erika talk her into drinking a bit, and was chatting about the legend of Akuji Kashima and Beatrice in a happy tipsy mood. Erika would nod from time to time, but besides this, she listened in complete silence. She wasn't actually taking notes, but she was gathering information on the whiteboard inside her head. Then she frowned as though noticing something out of place and held up her hand. Wait a second. Yes? That shrine was built by a travelling Shugenja monk to seal up the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima. Isn't that right? Yes, that's correct. It was one who possessed a vast supernatural power, and who placed that power within the mirror, and placed it within the shrine as a sacred mirror to seal the evil spirits. Something feels off about that. Why would a shrine to seal the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima also seal Beatrice? Well, that's because the sacred mirror's spiritual power. I see. So it's this really convenient sacred mirror that works on both evil spirits from the east and witches from the west. Got it. I'm still not satisfied. I'll back off there for now. What I don't understand is why Beatrice can't stand spiderwebs. According to the legend, the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima despise spiderwebs, so they were apparently used as wards against evil in the surrounding islands. In fact, spiders are a useful bug. There's nothing strange about the fact that island farmers had treasured them. It's very possible that they were then tied to the story of evil spirits and became known as charms against evil, leading to a tradition of people treating this useful bug with care through the generations. But that's just the legend of Akuji Kashima. The origins for the legend of the witch Beatrice came after Ashiramaya Kinzo moved to the island, when rumours sprouted about the mysterious legend of the gold, as well as the witch mistress who gave it to them. Oh, him. In other words, the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima and the golden witch Beatrice were originally completely different things, and yet the stories treat them like they're the same. Well, no. The evil spirits of Akuji Kashima couldn't stand spiderwebs, so neither could Beatrice. That sort of reasoning has been applied all over the place. When it was pointed out that this was strange, Kumasawa was lost for an answer. The doorknob to Kinzo-san's study has a scorpion magic circle drawn on it, which represents a charm against evil in Western sorcery. That's why the Western witch Beatrice can't touch it. I can understand that part. There's no reason for Beatrice to dislike spiderwebs. I don't remember spiderwebs ever being included among things witches can't stand. On the contrary, wouldn't spiders be the friends and minions of a witch? Well, in my opinion, those two legends about the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima and the witch Beatrice have been mixed together a little. In fact, maybe they've been fully fused together as one. The legend of Akuji Kashima is a fairy tale created by fishermen fearful of reefs in the Rokkenjima area. However, there was no visual image to go along with those evil spirits. Were they people, or monsters, or ghosts without legs? There's no mental picture of them. People are bad at imagining things without visuals. That's when the legend of the witch called Beatrice came in. A witch is a lot easier to picture than evil spirits. And on top of that, Kinzo-san had a portrait of Beatrice drawn and displayed. In other words, the lack of a visual image, which was the one weak point in the legend of Akuji Kashima, was finally completed. Since then, perhaps the two legends have been mixed together. I wonder. It is a bit confusing for an old lady such as myself. Kumasawa laughed to smooth it over, wiping away a cold sweat. She might have seemed confused, but she actually did understand what Erika was saying. In truth, she had been vaguely aware of how the legend of Akuji Kashima, which had been around before Shiramaru Kinzo had come to Rokkenjima, and the legend of the Golden Witch, the story of the woman who had given Kinzo a vast quantity of gold, had both transformed. She didn't want to acknowledge it, but she knew. The setting where Beatrice hated the spirit mirror and spiderwebs. This had been based on the ancient legend of Akuji Kashima. The evil spirits part of that legend had just been replaced by the witch of the portrait. So, if there really was someone claiming to be the Golden Witch Beatrice, I'd really like to ask her whether she actually does hate spiderwebs or not. What happens when she touches them? It said the witches and their minions received burns when they touched spiderwebs, so that's probably what would happen, I suppose. That's not bad. A splendid witch trial. If the spiderweb touches her and she gets burned, then she's an evil spirit, not a witch. And if nothing happens, then it proves she's just a human. In other words, whether she's burned or not, it will prove that the Golden Witch doesn't exist. The legend of the witch is nothing more than the legend of Akuji Kashima, reboiled with a new face on it. Well, simply by the existence of the legend itself, this level of reasoning is possible for Furudo Erika. What do you think, everyone? If only the two of them were in the lounge, Erika faced in the direction an invisible audience would have been, and shrugged. And just as Erika imagined, the targets for her comments actually were there, listening in. Spiderwebs? They burn if you touch them? When Bito the Elder snapped her fingers, a graceful silver spider slipped down from the ceiling, hanging by a transparent thread. Afterwards, only a single silver strand remained. Timidly, Bito stretched her finger out towards the spider's string. Then she touched it. I'm fine. You are? Bito the Elder lifted up a white, pale finger, and after showing it to her little sister, she traced the silver string with it. There was a stench like a single hair being burnt. Once again, she held her finger up in front of Bito, who was stunned. There was a thin burn line, as though someone had traced across it with a razor. What's going on? That's what I would like to know. Why are you unharmed? I don't know. What I don't understand is why you... Bold, come in! Do! It needed that bold. Why you do get burned by touching a spiderweb. I do not know. It's always been like that since I first gained consciousness. Then are you... Bito hesitated. However, her question was clear. No, I'm not one of the evil spirits of Akuji Kashima. I am Beatrice, ruler of Rokkenjima's night. Even I do not know why I have the same weakness as that island's evil spirits of old. A spiderweb's the only thing you can't handle? As this Erika person said, I cannot touch the doorknob to Kinzo's study. That scorpion magic circle burns me. For me, trying to open the door to that study is like trying to pick a red-hot horseshoe out of a fire. What about you? No? Scorpion magic circles, you mean? The older sister snapped her fingers again. And away they go. Let's check it out. When she did, the surrounding scene bent and twisted, and they had suddenly moved to the place in front of Kinzo's study. And there was the doorknob engraved with a scorpion magic circle. Those who research magic must have a refuge sealed off from both human and spiritual disturbances. It's no surprise that Kinzo chose to seal off his study and place a charm such as this here. And unfortunately, that affects me as well. She gently grasped the doorknob. As she did, a violent burning sound, unbelievably stronger than the one caused by the spiderweb, rang out. Onisama, you okay? Your hand. Ah! Her hand had been horribly burnt, and Bito couldn't help but avert her eyes. Fear not. This scratch will heal quickly. Apparently it would heal by itself if left alone. The older sister seemed to heal at an inhuman rate. However, it seems that you can handle it just fine. Ah! She timidly poked at the doorknob. Nothing happened. Slowly, she touched it with her entire palm, but she felt nothing but a pleasantly cool sensation. Strange. Though you are my double, you're different from me in several ways. While I might be able to touch the doorknob, if I ever get burnt like you did, I don't think I'd heal that easily. It's as though you're a normal human. Yes. Even I find it a little hard to believe that I'm a witch. I can't use magic like you, and I can't get strange burns or heal from them later. Father believed that I was a great witch reborn, but I can't believe it. Who are you? I'm Beatrice. I was born for Father's sake. And you, Onisama? I'm also Beatrice. I used magic to give Kinzo gold, and later became a soul and the formless witch that haunts this island. Just who on earth are we? Well, if they don't know. Unlike me, you seem to be a being in possession of a body. Really? Yes. I thought of it while listening to that Erica person. I am a witch who can use magic but has no body, and you are a witch who has a body but can use no magic. Eventually, perhaps we will become one, each filling in what the other lacks to form the true, complete Beatrice. It seemed to make sense. Both the Beatrices were missing something. If they became one, then they would surely be very close to the Beatrice the battler desired. Do you want to try? Huh? Hold out your hand. Is it gonna happen? The older sister slowly raised her palm and held it out before Bito. The large burn from a second ago really had started to heal already. It may be possible for us to become one. I want to know as well. By becoming one with you, I want to learn about my future self. Bito also raised her hand slowly, and the two hands touched. But nothing happened. Perhaps this meant that, while they were fated to become one eventually, that time had not yet come. For me, being burned by spiderwebs is perfectly normal. However, you didn't even know about it. In the same way, you say that the reason you were born was for your father's sake. Apparently that father is a Shurumaya battler. I know him as a rare guest who only comes a few times a year, but I cannot understand what connection you and I have with such an infrequent visitor. Surely, we must learn more about each other. Yeah, you're right. I get the feeling that learning about each other will lead us to something very important. On the other side lies the single future Beatrice. No, it may be more correct to call her the true form we are meant to possess. With their hands still joined, the two Beatrices swore to fill in the parts the other lacked and regain their single form. Bit by bit, Bito was walking down the path that led to the former Beatrice. Is that going to be where it ends? It is. Haha, okay. So the two Beatrices aim to be one and become the Beatrice that everyone knew. Okay, that's interesting. So it's gone from 10 past 10 to about 11 o'clock, nearly 11 o'clock. We're getting there. Oh, I can't wait to see who gets murdered, because I hope it's not Maria first this time. There's been a couple of arcs where she's been killed first with a couple of the others, with the other kids, or, you know. And I'm interested in her sort of fight with Erica, but also Kumasawa had a bit of a fight with Erica, so this time. So I guess a couple of characters who bring up witchy stuff that they believe in. Erica is sort of stamping them down a bit. Yeah, so this has been Greeny XI. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in a bit. When we see... I don't know, that picture makes me think it's going to be the battler who's locked in the room, but I'm not sure. Thanks again for watching, folks. See you again in a bit.